Shalom and welcome to Notes of Prayer. From here, our beautiful Chapel Sanctuary. This place that we love so much, where thousands of services took place, is now silent. If I can ask the camera to turn and show us our beautiful shul. And therefore, I decided to come here today in order to remind us all that we will be back here, bigger and stronger than ever, and we will celebrate Chagim, holidays, and Smachot. Today's class is going to be a little bit shorter, and the musical part is going to be longer. Roger and I prepared 7 settings for the tefillah, which we're going to discuss today. Today we're going to talk about the bracha of Sim Shalom, the blessing of Sim Shalom, which is the last one, the one that concludes the Amidah, every Amidah, whether it's weekdays, Shabbat, holidays. Last couple of weeks, we talked about the 3 last brachot of the Amidah that together creates one unit that's called Hoda'ah, Thanksgiving, and this unit includes the brachot of Retzeh, worship, Modim, Thanksgiving, and Shalom, peace, which we're going to discuss today. Chazal put it specifically at the end of the Amidah for a specific reason. In the bracha of Shalom and peace, we focus on this request for peace and completeness. It is the highlight, it is the climax of all the brachot that we just recited. Shalom comes from the word shalem, complete. In Nusach Ashkenaz, we have 2 versions for this bracha of Shalom. If you look at source number 1, so we have Sim Shalom for Shacharit, and in Mincha and Arvit, we have Shalom Rav. You can see that in source number 1. By looking at what Chazal write and the halachot of Tefillah, it seems that the Tefillah ends in the Hoda'ah, i.e. in Modim, and Birkat HaShalom, the blessing for peace, is an addition that was put there in order specifically to end the Tefillah with peace, with Shalom. Obviously, it's the Anshei Knesset HaGdolah, members of the Great Assembly, who wrote and established our Tefillot that composed this Tefillah, this bracha as well, but they added this request, i.e. peace, after Modim, after Hoda'ah, in order to end with Shalom. And from here the Chachamim learn, throughout the generations, always to conclude with a request, a plea for Shalom. For example, Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish, and Kaddish Titkabal, the full Kaddish, are supposed to end the Tefillah, and therefore they have that phrase, right? Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shmaya. Yehei Shlama, may it be peace, a great peace, Rabba, Min Shmaya, from the heavens. Or Oseh Shalom Bimromav. And even our Birkat HaMazon, the grace after meal, we also end with asking for Shalom, for peace. Hashem Oz La'amo Yiten, Hashem Yevarech et Amo B'Shalom. Now the first source for this idea that Birkat HaShalom, the prayer, the blessing of peace, was added specifically, even though the Tefillah ends with Modim, is from the Mishnah in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, where the Mishnah discusses the Nusach of the Tefillah, specifically Musaf of Rosh Hashanah, and the Mishnah counts or lists all the brachot of the Tefillah, but it does not list the blessing of Shalom. So the question is, why? The second source is the Seder Kri'ot V'Shichot, meaning it's the order that we have for bowing down in our tefillot. As we know, we have both in the beginning and in Modim. The Gemara in Brachot says the following, says to us that Shochim be'avot ve'hoda'ah, i.e. Modim, right? So we bow down both at the beginning, in the first bracha of the Amidah, and also in Modim. But the question is, why those 2 brachot specifically? It seems that because they start and end the tefillah. So if I bow, right, in the beginning and at the end, it creates some sort of a frame for the tefillah and define the entire tefillah as if I'm bowing down the entire tefillah. And from that we understand that means what? That modim, bracha of thanksgiving, is the last one of the Amidah. Now, we said that in Nusach Ashkenaz there are two versions for this bracha of shalom. Sim shalom for shacharit and shalom rav for mincha and arvit. And besides the fact that sim shalom is much longer than shalom rav, there's also a difference in the text itself. And it is very easy to see the influence of the Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing, what we call duchening, on the version of Sim Shalom, what we do not see in Shalom Rav. If you look at source number 2, Sim Shalom, I put on one side, and the Birkat Kohanim not in order, but you can see what's parallel to what. So Sim Shalom is parallel to V'yasem lecha Shalom. Uvracha parallel to Yevarechecha. V'chuneka is parallel to Chen. Barcheinu is again Yevarechecha. Or Ki ve'or panecha, right? Yaher Hashem panav elecha. Or Yisa Hashem, again, panav, this idea of panecha, etc. So you can see that in source number 2. It's very rare to find a tefillah that has a source directly from the Torah. And here it's very, very clear that the source is from the Torah, and the Nusach of Sim Shalom was written in relations to those psukim in the Torah. Now, Birkat Kohanim was put there at the end of the Amidah, and then Birkat HaShalom continues the Birkat Kohanim, and therefore comes immediately after that. Now, the request of Sim Shalom comes from this pasuk that is attached to Birkat Kohanim. After the Birkat Kohanim, the pasuk says, "V'samu et shmi al bnei Yisrael va'ani avarachem," meaning that in Birkat Kohanim, God's name, which is Shalom, is already on Bnei Israel, and therefore we can ask, we have the zechut or the ability to ask for Shalom. Now last week we mentioned that in the temple, right after the Kohanim gave the Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing, the congregation continued with a request that what? That the Birkat Kohanim will be chala, will take into effect, will become a reality, will be a real thing on them, which is Sim Shalom. Now, in Eretz Israel, both in Shacharit and in Musaf, the Kohanim are duchanim, they go up for Birkat Kohanim. Here in Chutz La'aretz, especially in Nusach Ashkenaz, we have a different custom for various reasons. We're not going to get into that. Our custom is to have Birkat Kohanim only on the Chagim. But the real practice is to have Nesiat Kapayim, i.e. duchaning, every day. So when there is Nesiat Kapayim, when the Kohanim give their blessing, we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu that He will bless us with the bracha of the Kohanim. And when it comes to Mincha and Arvit, when there is no duchaning, there is no Birkat Kohanim, we kind of say goodbye to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with this request that we will merit that God's name, which is Shalom, will envelop us in peace forever. So we can say that the bracha of Shalom, the bracha of peace, is not an independent bracha. In the morning, it's part of Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing, and in the evening, it's kind of a goodbye blessing and request that we will have peace. And here's what the Mishnah says: Lo matzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu keli machazik beracha liYisrael ela hashalom Hashem found the peace to be the vessel containing His blessing. Now, the meaning of the word shalom is clear, right? There's no doubt that it's the opposite of war. And we see it in various examples in the Bible. And of course, the most evident one is in the words of Kohelet, Et milchama ve'et shalom, just like the Beatles already told us, a time of war, a time of peace, right? But when the request is towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what exactly do we want Him, with a capital H, what do we want Him to do for us when we ask Sim Shalom Tova Avracha? In the Birkat Kohanim, it seems that there are requests, right? Ya'er Hashem panav elecha, or Yisa Hashem panav elecha. This is some sort of a request. But it's clear that we're not asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give us something, like in the middle blessings of the Amidah, like health, livelihood, kibbutz galuyot, all that kind of stuff. So in Birkat Kohanim, we don't talk about accepting or receiving something from God, but rather it's the relationship or the attitude that we ask from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, the Kohanim bless us that God will treat us favorably. We ask that we will have close, intimate relationship, loving relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, we're not asking for specific things from God, but rather we're asking peace. We're asking for relationship and partnership with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're not asking to receive blessings in order to fulfill what we lack, but rather it's an attempt to bring into the world of action that relationship that we have with Hashem during the time of the tefillah. During the time of the tefillah, we ask in the presence of Hashem. But now, it's the end of the tefillah, we're about to leave, to exit His presence. We're going into this world outside. In the language of Chazal, Ha'eved, the slave, notel reshut ve'yotzeh, asks permissions and leaves. Okay? Asking permission includes also this request to maintain and continue the relationship after the tefillah. We're asking that this experience of the tefillah will continue to reverberate in us. So now the question is, what is the connection between the blessing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and peace? Rabbi Yitzchak Arama, in his book Akedat Yitzchak, writes that we can't look at peace just as the lack of war. The Akedat Yitzchak claims that peace means harmonious inclusion of different parts which creates a functional, integral unity. In human society, everyone is driven by personal goals. Therefore, the potential for clashes with others is high. We don't necessarily have the same goals. Social peace is the inclusion of the personal interests and goals so the entire society functions in a harmonious way. World peace is Hashem. Because only God can provide the total and general frame that connects together all the individuals of creation. So a true shalom, a real shalom, according to the Akedat Yitzchak, exists only in Shamayim, only in the heavens, when there's unity, only by God. And we ask that something of that peace is going to manifest itself in our world here. So the Akedat Yitzchak explains that this type of peace cannot be achieved by the annulment of differences, but rather by gathering them together in a way that organizes them in one bigger organic unity. We can say that shalom is harmony between beings. It can be two people. It can be two cats. It can be a husband and a wife. It can be two empires. Life together in a way that they complete each other and that their existence mutually advance both of them. So therefore, shalom and shlemut are not only two words that come from the same shoresh, from the same root, but it's the same idea. Shalom, peace, and shlemut, completeness. And when one does not exist, then there's no shalom. Perhaps there's lack of fighting, perhaps there's a truce, Cold War, but it's not shalom. And the advantages and disadvantages of every living being come together so the sum is greater than its components. It's not being one characterless mush, but rather it's an ensemble that contains all the colors of the rainbow, each contributing its unique qualities and complete each other. This is why this bracha sounds like this unreachable ideal. On one hand, the shalom is the true reality of creation, but on the other, in reality, it exists only by Hashem. And therefore, shalom, in contrast to all the other topics of the blessings of the Amidah, is called here shalomecha, your peace, God's peace. Because shalom, this particular peace, that godly peace, can be found only be'or panecha, in the light of your, capital Y, your face. This is not something we can ask as part of our regular requests, the bakashot. We're not asking for a specific gift, but something higher. We're asking the harmony of all the other gifts. And when we are about to leave this encounter, this experience of being so close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu during Tefillah, we're trying to take with us something from this reality into this broken world that is far from being complete, in which we live. And now we're going to move to the music. Don't forget to clap this way. I'm going to change this stender into a music stand, and we'll be back in just a minute. The first Sim Shalom I'm going to sing tonight was written for the Hasidic festival in Israel in 1979 and was sang by a kibbutznik, Dudu Zakai.
Sim Shalom Tova u'bracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael lamecha. Sim Shalom Tova u'bracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, Aleinu, Aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael, Amecha. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים, עלינו, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, על כל ישראל עמך. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים, עלינו, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, על כל ישראל עמך.
Our second Sim Shalom tonight was written for a colleague of mine here in town, Chazan Nate Lamb from Stephen S. Wise Synagogue, by Michael Isaacson, who wrote a lot of the music of that particular temple. He was Michael Isaacson was born in 1946 in Brooklyn, New York, and arrived in Los Angeles in 1976 in order to write music for films and television, but he also wrote tremendous amount of music for the synagogue and liturgic texts. He is a founding artistic director of the Israel Pops Orchestra and the Milken Archive of American Jewish Music. He enjoys a distinguished career as a composer, conductor, producer, author, and educator with over 600 Jewish and secular musical compositions published. The American Society of Jewish Music, Hebrew Union College, and the Jewish Theological Seminary honored him as one of the 10 most influential living composers of Jewish music. And this is a composition that I discovered kind of recently, and I fell in love with immediately. Sim Shalom by Michael Isaacson.
שים שלום, טובה, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברכנו אבינו
go like this. Okay, and now with a very sharp turn to a traditional chazanut with a lot of soul. This is not the first time that in this series that I sing from the compositions of Chazan Moshe Morris Genchov. Genchov was known with a deep respect throughout his life as the Cantor's Cantor. Cantor of all cantors. For more than 65 years he inspired with his insightful interpretations of the Tefillah, the complexity of his art, all lent to to his cantorial style that is very sophisticated, that could be even more profoundly appreciated by serious colleagues. Genchov's compositions combine Eastern European tradition with innovations reflecting the theological and literary as well as the emotional implications of the prayer of the Tefillot. Genchov was born in Odessa. However, it was here in America that he seriously was introduced to Chazanut, and really that became his path. His vocal gifts were discovered when he sang in a school choir as a child by Chazan Tzemachson, who was the Chazan over there in Toledo, Ohio, where Genchov used to live. And later he went to New York and he sang in synagogue choirs, accompanying cantors like Yosef Rosenblatt and Mordechai Hirschman. And later on he took positions and he became Chazan on his own. And he's considered the last of the great masters of the golden era of Chazanut. I had the pleasure of meeting Genchov just a short while before his passing. I sang in a choir accompanying some of cantorial concerts in Florida, and I had a little solo. And after the concert, when I was introduced to Genchov, he said to me, "Keep singing and keep learning." So, Sim Shalom by Genchov. I'm just gonna make that a little bit higher so I can see.
Ta וצדוק ורחמים וחיים וחיים ובשוב עולם וצדוק ורחמים וחיים וחיים ושלום וטוב וטוב בעיניך לברך עמך ישראל בכל עת נוי וטוב בעיניך לברך עמך ישראל בכל עת נוי וטוב בעיניך לברך עמך ישראל נוי
I know you're clapping. Thank you. The next Sim Shalom we all know, but what we don't know always is who wrote it. So, this Sim Shalom was written by Jeffrey Neidel, who was the Chazan in Bet Shalom in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area for over 30 years. He started his career as a kid in the choir that was conducted by his father, Abraham and Neidel. I'm not going to hear you singing, at least now while I sing, but please, singing is encouraged. Sing with me, Sim Shalom. for you guys. That was fun. The next Sim Shalom is probably one of the most famous one in the repertoire of the Reform congregations, written by Max Janowski. Janowski was born in 1912 and passed in 1991. He was a composer of Jewish liturgy music, conductor, choir director, and voice teacher. Born in Berlin, his father was a choral director of Chazanut, and his mother was an opera singer. And he immigrated to the United States in 1937 and served in the US Navy during World War II. Janowski was the music director of Kehilat Anshe Ma'arav, Isaiah Israel congregation in Hyde Park in Chicago, all his career, where he wrote and arranged over 500 pieces. Among his most famous works is Avinu Malkeinu, the one that became famous because of Barbara Streisand's recording, Avinu Malkeinu, etc. And this particular Sim Shalom, which I will sing now, and it was actually dedicated to an American diplomat, Ralph Bounce. Sim Shalom by Max Janowski. I'm going to try to be both the Chazan and the choir somehow. We'll see how it's going to go.
Shalom
Forgot to mention that this was written for the high holiday version, and this is why we end with Oseh HaShalom and not Hamevarech et Amo Yisrael Bashalom. The next Sim Shalom was written by Chazan Meir Finkelstein. I spoke about Chazan Finkelstein last week. I sang his Modim, and my great appreciation to his music. And this week, Sim Shalom by Meir Finkelstein.
Sim Shalom, Tova, Tova uvracha, Chen v'chesed, v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Sim, 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 shalom, tova, tova uvracha. Sim, 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 shalom, tova, tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Sim, 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 shalom, tova, tova uvracha. Barcheinu avinu kulanu kechad beor panecha. Yeveyor, yeveyor, yeveyor panecha. Yeveyor panecha natata lanu al Hashem Elokeinu. Torat Chaim ve'afad chesed u'tzedaka u'beracha v'rachamim v'chaim v'shalom v'shalom. Sim, 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 shalom, tova, tova uvracha. Sim, 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 shalom, tova, tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. shlomecha baruch ata Hashem המברך את עמו ישראל
I want to conclude tonight's concert with yet another composition by one of my favorite cantors, Sol Zim. Last week I sang Sol Zim's Modim. If you missed it, not the end of the world. The concert is still available on Facebook by clicking on the link, and also on the shul website. Go to bethjacob.org. You can find that. And I spoke about Sol Zim and his magnificent talent last week as well. Just before we conclude, I would like to thank so much for my incredible accompanist, Roger Green. Roger, please stand up. Yeah, Roger. And all the technical support that I have here from David and Ari Schlacht, and our entire amazing group here, entire staff here at Beth Jacob under the leadership of Rabbi Top. Here we try to bring to you the sound of tefillah and Torah learning in difficult times where we cannot meet together, where we cannot physically meet together, but we are together spiritually. And until all this shall pass, I hope that everybody stay safe and healthy. This is good night. Next week we are going to be right here, same time, the same place, with a whole new program. Wednesday, April 1st. It's not a joke. April 1st, 7:30 p.m. right here, Facebook Live, Zoom, all the other platforms. Laila Tov, and this is Sim Shalom by Sol Zim. May God grant us peace.
ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך שים שלום טובה וברכה חן וחסד